Yeah, I'm in my home office. If anybody is wondering where I'm coming from. Awesome. All right. So the big question that I'm getting right now is what should athletes be doing? And this is the what I would start with is having a great understanding of what you know what the strength residuals are. What that means is basically how long can your body retain certain attributes of strength and performance. So how long can your body maintain strength? The answer to that is around 30 days, plus or minus 5 on genetics and individuals and things like that. So with that being said, there's a reason to believe that right now your main focus should not be strength. So if you think that you need to borrow some hex bar or barbells from your gym for your athlete, the answer is that's probably not that important because you can retain those strength qualities for around 30 days. That's a scientific fact. Now, beyond that, you've got some things that are very sensitive, and adaptations happen, neural adaptations happen very quickly. For instance, the application of speed and power, that's fleeting. That's gonna only be retained for 3 to 5 days maximum. So every athlete that's watching this, you need to sprint or jump or do something as fast as possible 2 times a week. Why? Because you will actually lose your abilities there very quickly. You can get better very quickly at those things, but those things are fleeting. You have to do that and say, well, okay, well, I can't sprint. I don't have anywhere to sprint where I'm at. That's fine. Anything you do as fast as possible is going to give your body that neural response to proprioceptively continue to allow speed. Whole body vibration platforms can do this. You can throw something as hard as fast as you can straight up in the air. You can do speed squats, jump squats, air punches, anything to keep that speed residual there. And that is an adaptation that's neurological in nature. So you've got 3 to 5 days max on that. You need to be hitting that. Okay, other things, strength endurance. Strength endurance is going to last around 10 to 15 days. So work capacity is important. Doing these body weight workouts, making sure that you're moving 60 minutes a day, that is important, not just from a standpoint of your engine and how much work capacity you have, but think about your tissue resilience. So having the tissues that can actually create the resilience you need when you return to sport. So your tendon, your ligament systems, obviously your muscle, your bone structures, you need those body weight circuits. You need that work capacity that is longer in duration, and so that your body can, when it returns to work, it's better apt to be able to handle that load. If you haven't done anything on your feet and all you've done is an elliptical, or maybe you've just lifted weights and you haven't done any kind of complexes or work capacity, you're at higher risk for soft tissue injuries. And then beyond that, your anaerobic system. So making sure your anaerobic alactic, anaerobic lactic systems are there. So types of conditioning. So if some of you have access to a bike, if some of you have access to other types of equipment, or even if you want to go on some type of short duration run, then I think that that's a positive thing to hit, once every week. I think that's a good thing to do. But if you guys just open up and just go on runs, or say you just do the things you like, maybe you just really focus on your deadlift, I think that's a huge mistake right now. You've got to diversify your work. You've got to make sure that you're hitting on the things that matter, but you understand the science of strength residuals. You know that strength is not something you have to continually work on. And aerobic capacity is also in that bucket. Really, you only need to focus on your aerobic capacity. So that's your ability to be able to move with oxygen as the primary means for that energy system. And if you're running every day, you don't have to do that. That's just beating up your joints. You can retain that for up to 30 days. Some people more, some people less. On the bottom of that's around 25 days. So diversify your work. Make sure you're hitting on your speed qualities. Make sure that you are being diligent with diversification of your work, and make sure you have a purpose for everything that you do. If everybody does militaristic workouts, consistently, our injuries are going to go up. They're not going to go down. They're going to go up. If you don't have any type of instruction beyond get strong, strength is the most overtrained attribute of athletic performance in our industry right now. And the people that understand that are winning, and the people that don't are losing. 70-year-old men, 60, 70-year-old men can get strong. Okay. If the people you're surrounding your kids with really want them to focus on strength, and that's the thing they keep pointing to as what their value is for your kid or for you as an athlete, you need to look somewhere else, because strength is the easiest thing to train. It's the easiest thing to show improvement, but it's not the most important thing. It's a piece of it. It's a box you check. But once you can lift 1.5 to 2.5 times your body weight on any lift, you probably can't gain any athletic performance inside a sport with it, period. And those are genetic factors, male-female factors, and other things, but you don't need to push beyond that. So if you think you need to be in your garage getting huge every day and you're an athlete, you've been misdirected. You've been misguided. You need to break it up and do more things. And then beyond that, just be creative, man. Get out there and move. Most people, they want this routine right now. Right now is the perfect time to be creative in your space and go out and go do something. Create a game with your friends. Go only the friends you live with and around. No new people. Don't get me in trouble. But it's a great time to get away from some of the things that I think are routine and that continue to break down our body. So I'm going to look at some questions here. Bicycle a few times a day, okay? Yeah, I think it's okay. I think the problem we get with cycling with a lot of people is that their knees can't handle the repetition of that. See, your body really wants variability in joint angles and movement. So when you go to doing cycling every day, it's kind of a locked motion. Oops, sorry. It's kind of a locked motion. So when it is a locked motion like that and it's isolated, then you're susceptible to in a certain way. So what I mean is, think about a race car that runs the same track every day. If it runs the same track every day, you're going to wear out the bearings on one side. It's not because the race car is bad. It's not because, it's not because the track is bad. It's because you're wearing out the bearings because you're going through the same route. So I would say the same thing with cycling. You can't overdo it. And a lot of lower back pain that comes from cycling is due to not having good routines before and after the rides and not mixing things up enough. That's right, Rowdy. You come from the Apex school. More isn't better. Better is better. Don't just do to do. How about mountain climbers and jumping rope? Jumping rope is incredible. You know what? Jumping rope, speed ladder, all those are from the same vein. And basically, you're conditioning your tissues of your feet, all the soft tissues in the lower limb, to be able to withstand that impact and that contact. And you're training the tendon and ligament systems to be reactive, and you're working on the elastic components of those tissues. So I think jumping rope is incredible. Just like a speed ladder, it's going to build some of the tissue resilience. Now, it's not truly speed work. So be mindful of the fact that it's not really speed work. How do you help sport coaches understand the strength gains aren't always the most important thing? I think that's tough. I think the more uneducated people that have kind of jumped in this profession because maybe CrossFit didn't work out for them, or they didn't go to college for whatever reason, they rely on strength because that's the easy thing to point to show how good they are at what they do. But the real increments in performance and the elite performers, they're incredible at expressing power in multiple dimensions and speed in multiple dimensions, period. And mobility complexes right now are huge. It's going to be good for work capacity. It's going to be good for your tissue extensibility, mobility in your joints, and stability through your ranges of motion. Strength endurance work, a lot of body weight complexes, and speed movements. If you can sprint, go sprint. If you can't, throw something hard. Kick, punch, it doesn't matter. Do something fast. Speed squats, that keeps your neural adaptations on a high level, and your proprioceptive output is going to lend those tissues to continue to adapt to speed. And I think that's important from an electrical and from a structural standpoint. Is it okay as long as aerobic exercises mixed in? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, doing some of these things is good. Mixing it up is good. What I'm trying to prevent people from doing is going and thinking that they need to lift the house in their garage unsupervised just because some gym owner wants to keep them hooked by loaning them equipment. I think that's faulty logic right now, and I think that's a poor way to use your time. In fact, it might be a good time to get away from that. One of the very best ways to get the body to improve strength safely is isometric holds. I'm talking about like extreme isometrics. Think 3-minute holds. Doing a 3-minute isometric hold in anything, you're going to build more strength. There's going to be internal friction. There's going to be a lot of things that are adaptations that are positive. So the way that your structures work from a soft tissue standpoint, if you do an isometric hold, okay, you sit there and you hold. There's a muscle contraction that continues to shorten. As that shortens, the tendon and ligament structures have to pick up the slack, so they have to improve their density. From a physiological standpoint, those holds are going to help the tendons and ligaments and the muscles work together more cleanly, and they're going to decrease your injury risk and increase performance. Those extreme isometrics are, if you can get people to do it, if you can do it right now, that's going to be way more valuable than a max deadlift. I can promise you that. That's right, TJ, you know about the holds. We do the extreme isometric holds from the professional level all the way down. Very safe, beneficial. The body only understands stress. You're not going to, it's not like the body can compute how much weight you're lifting. It's maximal recruitment of the fibers and tissues, and also neurological recruitment. Any other questions? These are great, really good questions. Let's see if I missed some. Hold on. Excuse me. Instagrammers, I'm moving around here. My brother. Is bench okay? Yeah, man, bench is okay. Look, when I was younger, I was into bench press. I think everybody goes through that. I wanted to bench 300 pounds, and once I did it, it was like, didn't really help me be a better football player. In fact, a lot of players that I played with, man, they didn't bench what I did, and they were much better at football than me. So I think it's pretty trivial for most sports. But look, let's break this down. What is strength training for? Okay, no one really wants to ask this. They just want to improve it and say that's what they, that they're a coach, whatever. Strength training is for resilience of tissues. Very, very few times is strength training going to be the thing that makes you better at your sport. I mean, just being honest, like it's not. I mean, is it going to make you more resilient? Probably. Is it going to help you have more repeatability? Maybe. Is it a key performance indicator? Probably for less than 10% of the positions in any sport is strength a key performance indicator. Only strength to the level in which you can perform more power and speed is applicable in most cases. And don't get me wrong, I can get people strong. I know how to get people strong. We can hang our hat on that, but it's one of the easiest things to do. And if your counsel, if the people you're depending on are over reliant on strength, you need new people. They're probably not educated enough to do what you want. Tanner, I've heard about these marble races, man. There's basically like a gambling ring going on with the Apex Major League Baseball players on your marbles, man. It's the only sports that are going right now. Your stock is up, Tanner. How do we get college strength and conditioning coaches to change their thinking to train athletes to what APEC teaches? Man, I think that's the wrong question. Look, there is a lot of really good college strength coaches. Unfortunately, there's a lot that are buddies of their head coach and have always been promised to be able to hang out and whatever. So, and there's some that are old and not old. Look, old is fine. There's some that are in old trains of thought, and they are associating success and wins with results. Having success doesn't mean you're getting results. These are two different things that a lot of people don't understand. Just because I'm associated with someone that's a successful athlete doesn't mean that I had anything to do with it, just like anyone else. And I think a lot of these college strength coaches are stuck in that frame of thought. Well, we won the Rose Bowl doing this pyramid or this training cycle, and they can't disassociate that from the fact that they could do better, and that maybe a team down south that didn't have the talent that played them closer, maybe that's more impressive than them actually winning or going to the Rose Bowl. So yeah, I think that's tough, man. I mean, look, we're not perfect. Every day we're trying to find reasons why we're wrong. Every day we're trying to find reasons that we can get better, and we are constantly self-auditing our systems, processes, everything, the way we do everything. And I think that's the best way to be. So, man, I want to be an asset to any strength coach out there. And I want to support anybody that loves people and has a passion for what they do and has gone through the proper educational channels to be in those positions. I'm not big on, ex-CrossFit coaches that just want to do what we do, or just want to jump in this because they couldn't run their business doing that. I don't appreciate that. And I'll be the first to speak out against it. But if you're in this thing and you're really in this thing, we want to support anybody. And we're not perfect. Anybody can poke holes at us too. I think it's a great question. Okay. Isometric holds followed by plyometrics, vice versa. I would not do, unless, look, one of the best ways to get rid of a tendinosis type pain, so if someone's got patellar tendon pain or any kind of pain anywhere, do a 30-second isometric and then see if their neural output or input rather is different. See if their body feels different. Usually they'll be able to go from that to be able to do something without pain for at least a period of 45 minutes. We've seen up to 3 hours for a lot of people. That'd be the only time I do an isometric before plyometric. If it's a really low amplitude plyometric, maybe you're looking for adaptation, it's more conditioning focused, like a speed ladder or jump rope or something, then I think it'd be fine. But if you truly are doing a plyometric for a speed and tissue adaptation and power adaptation, I wouldn't superset much. One thing you can do is you can do in a really extreme load. I'd look into French contrast training. French contrast training is brilliant, but it's very hard on the body. So you do an extreme load. That extreme load is going to maximally recruit all the soft tissue. Then you go speed it up by something offloaded, even if it's a partial range of motion from in very, very light weight and resistance, maximal speed, even rapid fire, and you're going to get a great adaptation from that. But the cost is high. So whatever you want to do the next 48 hours, they're probably not going to be able to produce power or speed at a high level. That's probably my favorite thing to do if my athletes are to the point where they can handle that. How would you handle a high school senior baseball program? Man, it depends on the injury. That's a great question, Jackson. So high school senior baseball program that has an arm injury program or players. I mean, look, here's the ways you get hurt. Genetic factors, poor training, poor technique, poor execution, poor nutrition, poor sleep. There's so many things. So when people start saying, oh, this got so-and-so hurt, are you sure? I don't know. I mean, for training or competition, if the injury rate is 5% or lower, it probably has nothing to do with what the program actually is. If it's higher than 5%, there's a reason to believe that it could be some causation there. Okay, so look at the numbers. If it's higher than 5%, probably doing something wrong. If there's an execution from a technical standpoint, it could be most commonly, if I'm honest with you, injuries are the athlete's fault. 98% of the time. Why? They're not living right from a rest standpoint. Either they have bad genetics or improper execution. They don't take ownership over their sleep. Usually it's the athlete's fault, to be honest with you. But sometimes it's not. Usually we get dragged through the mud if somebody gets hurt. Associate, well, look at this, But I think those athletes will be the first to tell you that there's a lot of factors. APEC third location. My man, I'm trying to have less locations, not more. So, we'll see. How should skill work be done, especially for baseball players? Look, right now, you're at least going to have 8 weeks off. If you're a high school player, the most you could hope for right now is playing in a district tournament or something like that and getting in the playoffs, or maybe even just going straight to, like a one-off and going from there. Right now, I would practice aspects of your skill that you can afford to work on during the season. What is your weakness? Or the way I like to look at it is, what is your strength? Don't just work on everything. Hit your strength hard and hit your weaknesses enough to make them acceptable. And I wouldn't do it every day. I mean, you've got an opportunity to really train your body and do things that you couldn't do in season. So put some of that finite injury energy into training your body right now and elevating different performance metrics there. And lay out a schedule, man. Everybody should work 6 days a week right now. 6 days a week. Lay things out. What are you going to hit on what days? I like sprints or some type of speed on Mondays and Thursdays. Maybe Tuesdays and Fridays is good for you. I like heavy strength on a Tuesday and Friday. Yeah, that's a great question. How many days should we hit the central nervous system hard on a 5-day a week? I look at programming on like a 14-day block. In 14 days, I want to hit it at least 5 times. But that's not always possible if you have tired athletes. So I would say in a 5-day split, if you can hit it hard twice, realistically, you're good. That's why I like a Monday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Friday split on the central nervous system high exposure. Now, there's different types of exposure to the central nervous system. We feel like that people can be exposed to a stimulus from strength twice a week and possibly speed and power twice a week. Some athletes can only handle 3 total. Most athletes can only handle 3 total. So when you're looking at central nervous system stimulation, I would make that consideration that they might not can hold for that long. APEC in Atlanta, man. Atlanta has got a lot going on. I got some friends out there. I'd rather support them than compete with them. That's for sure. What else? Other questions roll in. What's a good nutrition plan for a 13-year-old boy who plays every position in baseball? Look, let me take this opportunity to say this. Nobody has a position before varsity. All right. Everybody is terrible at their sport before varsity. I don't care who you are. If you're the greatest 11-year-old in the United States, you're terrible, period. So quit saying you got positions. Nobody's got a position. You're a human being first. So what's the best nutrition plan for somebody? Eat things that are natural. If you're rubbing dirt off of it, it's probably better for you than if it's in a package. You've got to mix up the colors on your plate. Limit sugars, especially after 3 o'clock, regardless of where they come from. You know, fruits and vegetables are great, but I tell people don't mix your fruits. There's a lot of kids that can have some issues from mixing fruits. And I think a lot of the times kids don't need sugar unless it's post-activity after 3 p.m. because it can really disturb their rest and recovery cycles, which have a lot to do with the development of their neural pathways when they sleep. What is my take on overhead strength exercise with overhead athletes? Look, I think that doing bilateral presses, like 2 arms on a locked bar overhead, is fairly risky if there's not great technique. But look, overhead strength is important. Overhead presses, we don't shy away from quarterbacks from the youth and NFL level or pitchers. Now, I'm not going to say that we do it 6 times a week because we don't, but there is an element of stability and strength that needs to be made through a range of motion in as many different angulations as structurally possible. So pressing overhead is fine. Doing Olympic lifting is fine, all within the context of solid technique and oversight and minimizing it. Yes, you need 10 hours. Good, Connor, get them. Yeah. Laying in bed, playing video games or texting with your friends is not sleep. That's not rest. What could be a few core principles, movements I could focus on a 4-year-old? Yeah, man, I love this. What's up, Rhino? I love this. So I feel like the best thing for little guys, okay, variations of crawls. So do a bear crawl. Now see, hey, can you get lower? Can you be a bear cub? Can you crawl really low? Now get really tall. Be a tall bear. Okay. Now crawl like Spider-Man. Different variations like that. Donkey kicks. Why is this so great for somebody in this level? The reason is because of spinal formation. Crawls were supposed to be the way that human bodies develop that spinal engine and the coordination between the hips and the shoulder girdle. And we're in such a culture where everybody wants their kid to walk first and, oh, my kid walked it this month. And so we skip too much of that. And these kids need more exposure to crawl variations in every way you could think of. Imitating any kind of animal, anything. I think it's one of the greatest things you could do with your kids is crawl variations, imitate animals, and have fun. And that's what I concentrate on. That's what I would concentrate on. We do a lot of that in our curriculum for our athletes here. And then, just body weight foundational squats in different positions, push-ups in different positions, having pull and climb trees. Man, climbing trees is that's the number one way we were supposed to develop like that. Like go climb a tree, man. Like that's one of the very best things you can do. Kids are so fun. It's so easy. I wish we were all like that. What else, man? You guys are bringing it. I appreciate this. Ratio of lower body unilateral exercise to bilateral. For those of you that don't know, bilateral is basically using two, well, in this case, 2 legs at a time versus unilateral 1 leg. So what I would say is we like unilateral variations probably 2 to 1 to bilateral. Bilateral is great because you can get a higher neurological and physiological stimulus because typically you can do more weight. Now, not always, and I know Boyle would be the first to tell me not always, and that's cool. But I like unilateral because you can work in so many dimensions of movement, at least 8 dimensions, maybe more. Bilateral, you really can't. You've got to be careful in tweaking positions, not necessarily movements. So I'm not one of those guys that's going to tell you, like, don't do bilateral movements. I think that's silly, but I think you can minimize it. And again, if you know that for maximum strength, you only need to hit it every 30 days. I mean, we had NFL combine guys that their verticals went up 10 inches and we only did heavy weight bilateral once every 2 weeks. And that's a fact. So I know that it can work. Any helpful fitness trackers you recommend for athletes to track sleep, stress? Yeah, there's a few. I love the Whoop Band. I don't work for them, but I love it. There's a fatigue band that you have to actually be invited to use that I used for a while, and I really like that too. It's mainly just military and contract stuff. What are some good exercises and things for volleyball players to focus on without heavy weight? Hattie, hope you're great. I would say extreme isometric holds. A lot of unilateral and bilateral isometric holds. I'm talking try to work yourself up from 30 seconds to 3 minutes. And then lunge variations, because lunge variations are if you can do 8-point lunge variations, it's mimicking your body's ability to handle gravity in these different onset directions, and drivers is what we call them. So the ability to absorb, stabilize, and react to forces in the ground from different angles are going to help with your tissues and your foot and ankle and knee and hip, and basically being able to adapt to these forces when you come back to it. I would also do a lot of low-level plyometrics. What I mean by that is a lot of jump rope, speed ladder type stuff. You've done vectors at Apex, so working on that map of eight dimensions, and really dividing that up in 3, so 24 different levels, and hops, jops, leaps, broad jumps, things of that nature. Really, really good question. And then of course, body weight, shoulder girdle, because you guys rip it, man. You rip it, and so being able to keep the body strong and stable when it comes to the velocity of the shoulder girdle. Those are some KPIs I think for volleyball that'd be huge. I'm going to pivot over here. When training youth 10 to 12 and younger, is it better to concentrate on technique over effort or effort over technique? Great question, Sammy. I think that to mix it up, man. I think mix it up. So technique can be overdone, in my opinion, because technique is truly something that is at the mercy of the athlete's resources and the environment. And sometimes we don't have the same capability in our joints as other people, or maybe my femur is longer than yours, or maybe your tibia is longer than mine, and it makes things look different. So the whole knees over the toes thing, it makes it hard for people to just have a one-size-fits-all technique with stuff. So I think effort is great. I think that's a great thing to focus on, but I think that 10 to 12, man, they need to focus on fun, and they need to focus on internally learning what makes their body different. I would say that's the number one thing that age. What makes me different? Those are things they can draw confidence from. Those are things they can learn from and they can apply. How do you encourage intrinsic motivation? You've got to create an environment and a culture that makes that something safe. Rah-rah speech is only, can temporarily work, but they've got to have kind of a fire to be the best version of themselves. And you got to cultivate an environment where that's something that you allow to happen. And if you're not careful and you create a situation where all their motivations relying on you, you're going to create more of a problem than more of a hindrance. What is the latest developed muscle group you typically see in both male and female high school athletes? Great question. I would say the better way to ask that would be, or the better way to respond that would be, when you get that hormonal cocktail, meaning you get testosterone, you get those hormones in puberty that So you get that peak height velocity first. Peak height velocity is you shooting up, and that is structural mainly. Bones, tissues, they're all trying to adapt to the height that your body is growing at. Now, with that said, you will then go into peak weight velocity, which is another way of saying you get a hormonal cocktail. When that happens, the cross-sectional muscle fibers in your body can adapt for mass, and that mass can actually equal more output. So at that point, you're going to get a huge boost in performance. I don't care if you're training with, it doesn't matter if you're being trained by a pet you have, or if it's someone with a PhD, you're going to make bumps. Now, what those bumps are in performance is going to be, it's going to be largely due to what you've done before and drawing a map in your brain neurologically of where you want to take your body, but also has to do with, how well you're handling that transition. The youth aren't little men and women. They're different. They're almost different animals. They're more plastic. We're more hardwired and structured. Great question. Let's see. Appreciate it. Yeah, so nutrition, what I'll do is I'll work on posting some pillars for that to help you guys, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. Quarterback. Yeah, get a lot of questions about training Patrick. Spoke to him this morning about doing he's kind of bored, so he's doing a couple of bike rides a day on top of some other stuff. I'm trying to calm him down, but yeah, there's a lot. Look, there's no magic pill. Okay, the great thing about Patrick is he's, I'd say to sum it up, the best thing about Patrick is that he's very comfortable with himself. And there's a lot of things about him that a lot of people would not have embraced, including himself, and he did, and he chose to maximize those things. So I'd say if you're a young quarterback, explore who you are first, and then grow on that. Don't try to be Peyton Manning or Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers. Find out what's good about you, and then let's maximize that. Good workout. There's not just one good workout for shoulder strength and hip rotation. And it's a system. So every performance that anybody has on high level, there is a calculated system that surrounds them, and there's a spirit and a culture that surrounds them. So what I mean is, you can't have a strength program that takes away from your movement literacy. You can't have a movement literacy program that is counterproductive to your strength or your athletic training or your PT or your technical coaching. A lot of things got to line up for you to perform on a high level. And that stuff's important. So there needs to be somebody that kind of is overseeing all of it. You can't have people that work with you that differ in opinion and approach. If possible, you want to align those people, and they all need to be working towards the same goal. But yes, Patrick has shoulder girdle routines that he does 4 times a week. You don't need any equipment for. You don't need bands. You don't need anything. Learned a lot of them from Tom House. Tom House is a friend of mine. Dean Deoxys and Ryan Sullins, great people. As far as trading information and professional colleagues, they're elite. And we've learned a lot from them and combined a lot of the things that we do with a lot of the things that they do to optimize our throwing systems. And of course, we've learned a lot from a lot of people, and hopefully we've been a part of conversations to help elevate a lot of other entities as well in those veins. So hope that helps. Hip rotation, man, it's I'm gonna stay off of that. There's some really good quarterback coaches that do some really good things. I would look at Throw It Deep, QB Country, some of those, Quincy Avery, some of those people have some great resources. There's a lot more that have some great resources out there, and you got to find what matches with you. Can I explain how sprint and speed code or strength workout can be programmed? Do you superset? I love supersets because they save time, and the physiological, the stacking can create some subsidiary type of adaptations that I think are very beneficial for athletes. So I love supersetting. The problem is you got to have, if people aren't patient enough typically to rest enough between the supersets. But typically for me, the supersets got to be there for a couple reasons. One, you're matching things that are agonist antagonists, or you're matching things that don't take away. For instance, if you did a row with a single arm row with a reverse fly, you're really stacking on to create some physiological adaptations for hypertrophy for the back. If you didn't want that, say you could do a max effort pull and measure the wattage on that. And then if you wanted to do some type of strength exercise for horizontal push, you could superset that, and there wouldn't be a whole lot of conflict there. A little bit, but not enough to matter. Or you could match, one of my favorite things is matching pull-ups with some type of pull from the ground, because you're basically unloading those facets of the spine when you hang, and then you're loading them back up when you pull. So I love supersets, to answer your question. Stephanie, could I write a book? I don't think the world wants a book from me, but I appreciate your encouragement always. Blood flow restriction training. I'm not a fan personally. I have people within APEC on my team that love it. I've never been a fan. There's some things that I'm not sure of, and when I'm not sure, I don't like to act. I have concerns on long-term tissue adaptations. I think the hormonal adaptations are on point. I think the cocktail of nutrient-rich blood that you get after that it's prudent. It's good. I do worry about lasting implications for the tissues surrounding those areas and other things. So why do we see Tommy John in position players? Look, a throw is a throw. You can get Tommy John from doing a fist pump as a dad. Like, it's not a, position players a lot of times don't train their shoulder girdle and their arm to the type of technical chain reactions that it should. So the technique of throwing, and they also don't train it for the type of resilience that they need. A shortstop and outfielder can get more velocity on throws at times than a pitcher because of the way they wield their body and the ability to get the lower body into the throw. So you got to prepare the body for the demands of that. And that's why you see a lot of those issues. One good piece of advice for upcoming strength and conditioning coaches: just assume you know nothing. And if you can do that on a daily basis, you're going to be great. I would say if you don't invest an hour a week into learning, you don't deserve to be in this profession. I'd say get the heck away from CrossFit. Be prepared to make stands on things that people don't agree with, and be okay with it. If everybody agrees with you, you're probably a terrible strength coach. Also, quit studying things that you're good at. Start looking at things you don't necessarily believe in and find some truth in it. Most young strength coaches will want to study the thing that they personally are good at. If you're a good heavy lifter, you're going to want to justify that as a means. If you're a speed guy, you're going to want to try to make sure everybody thinks that's the way to get better. I would say grow out of that. Do you prefer resistance lifts with bands or chains? So here's the deal. If you can't lift 1.5 times your body weight on any lift, you do not need bands and chains. You don't need bands and chains until you're so strong that you level out. Bands and chains are an excellent way to basically create a version of confusion for your neurological and your structural systems. And that's going to lead to an adaptation that could lift you up. So I would say really bands and chains are great, but I wouldn't use them until athletes get kind of flat line on their results. They kind of hit a plateau. That's when you would want to introduce that. But most athletes don't need that till they get around 2 times their body weight. Some a little earlier, but not so much. We use pneumatic resistance, which is the same type of thing, except for it's consistent through the range of motion. Chains, as you know, the lift is going to get heavier the further you go through the range of motion, because the chains lift off the ground and it's heavier. With bands, it's similar in that the further you have it stretched out, the more resistance you have. And then on the way down, it gets actually lighter. It's a different type of feel, but that's my output. Cody, by no means is it bad, but I think sometimes it's just it's a little too much of a decoration and not really appropriate at times. So CrossFit, why is it a nemesis for me? Let me be the first to say that there are some incredible CrossFit coaches and people that are associated with CrossFit. There's a lot of people that are strategically aligned with CrossFit because they know that they can help those people. No industry in this world has benefited more from CrossFit than physical therapists. And there's some really smart physical therapists that are deep into CrossFit because they know that they will always supply them with a better living than they ever could have. I don't like CrossFit because the leadership, I think, morally isn't sound. They didn't go to college. They're just stacking things that have high wattage. They don't understand tissues and what they're made for. They don't understand how the shoulder works. That it doesn't have any type of joint hydraulic system. It's irresponsible. Okay. It's irresponsible. It's a slap in the face to our profession. It's built off sex and drugs somewhat. And that's not how I believe in this profession to change lives and improve lives to the field of human performance. And I don't think CrossFit does that. I think it's self-glorification, glory hole, and a cesspool of people that failed in other professions and wanted to jump into something. So there's my rant on CrossFit. If you don't like it, people don't have to follow me. Now, they have tapped into patriotism and other things, and I think it's similar to using religion for clients, which I don't agree with. There's some people in this town that do the whole Jesus wants you to work with me thing, and I just don't. I think your beliefs and your faith are important, but I think if you're leveraging that for business, I think you're going to have to account for that another time. And I think CrossFit does that with the military a lot. I don't appreciate that. When do you build an aerobic base? I don't think you do. I've had an opportunity to speak on panels with some incredible coaches, and Lamar Miller, and there's been some people that I've been around that build their base by doing barbell complexes. All an aerobic base is work capacity. Now, in aerobic base, if you go out and run every day, that for an aerobic base, you're going to have, there's repercussions to that. There's the risk with metatarsal joint of the foot, all the soft tissue, plantar fasciitis, the calcaneal glide, your subtalar joint, the rotation of your tibia and fibular head, all the way up to the hip and the lower back. So you got to be careful with the aerobic base because you could go if you go test drive a car to see what's capable of. you hit extreme routes. Someone that gets that car is not going to get the car they would have got. So it's the same type of thing. Like, you got to be careful about how you build your aerobic base. My guy Ted. Oh, sorry. Let me go up. One good piece of advice. Oh, sorry. I already did that one. Quick question. How much training session is written out ahead of time, followed to a T? And how much do you change and adapt? Man, that is a very high level question. I would expect no less from my guy, Ted Butler in Lexington, Kentucky. Man, Ted referred an athlete to us that he'd been working with for a long time named Jedrick Wills that is going to be most likely a top 10 pick in this draft. And we were able to work with him and partner with Ted on that. Very appreciative. Also, Ted was a part of our original continuing education group at the Nike World Headquarters. So much love and respect. To answer your question, every good coach needs to go in with a plan, but we're open to changing all of it from the feedback that we get on how they are acting and how they are moving in the warm-ups. Warm-ups are a litmus test. Warm-ups are a way for you to gauge the central nervous system availability and the tissue availability and just really the availability of your athletes that day. So you need to watch and learn and listen. Are they joking with each other? Or are they griping? Are they sluggish? Or are they on time? All these things matter. So we change a lot. Now, we're not out there just freewheeling. But I'd say if you had to put me on a number from a variance standpoint, I'd say 20% on a normal day, we vary from our script pretty consistently. There are days it's 100%, few and far between. There are days that it's 50%, not very common. 20% is pretty common. Anybody got any other questions? Man, you guys are on fire today. Maybe I should announce this more. Love you, Ted. Appreciate you, brother. More than anything. Thanks for being a great friend. Love you, man. Anybody else? Anything? My opinions on aerobic versus anaerobic exercise for weight loss conditioning, and how much for the middle-aged guy trying to stay in shape. Hey, this is a great question, Casey. Here's what I would say: when you do anaerobic training as an adult, you tap into that brown fat deep in your energy stores. Also, doing anaerobic training when you're older can boost growth hormone levels and testosterone levels. So I really think it's a great thing to do. I really do. I think it's a great thing to do now. Now, saying that, you don't do it every day, man. You gotta mix it up. So I would say hitting that a couple times a week as a minimum is a great way to keep your levels up there. Doing more than that, you can really put your body in a little bit of a depression. That's why I don't really like WODs and stuff like that all the time. 3 times a week probably is enough for any type of Tabata or any type of anything like that. That's a great question, Casey. And for us, we need a lot more low impact aerobic. There's a reason why on Muscle Beach, the bodybuilders are walking, because that burns fat and there's not a lot of consequence to our joint structures. Continue to work out while healing hamstring issues. With the hamstring, it depends on where it's at, but I would say, man, there's a ton of things you can do. You got to be careful on how you hinge and where you go in ranges of motion, but stay out of anything that has any pain reaction from, really a 3 on. So a 0-3, you can kind of manage it. Above that, you need to do something else. Keep moving. Do a lot of dribbles, which is just basically cycling motions where you compound off the ground. I would do a lot of those things. Great question, Sean. When is the point of an athlete is sluggish or not feeling well? You just have them push through. Man, that's tough. You got to have a relationship with your athletes when you can have that conversation. They've got to make that decision, and the great ones know when to make it. The great ones know when to rest and when not. And I wish I had a simpler answer for you. But you got to know them, and they got to know you. Thank you. Loved my time there. Hope you guys are well. Game day warmups, man. I love this topic. So game day warmups, you want to do the minimum effective dose on game day. Think about a game day warmup is like if you're about to get in a helicopter, and I know that's a sensitive thing for various reasons right now. If you're about to get in a helicopter, you really need to test switch everything. Even if you don't think you're going to use it on that day, hit those test switches. So that's what a warm-up should do. One, warm up the temperature of the body, and then start hitting the test switches on all the things you might need to access during that game. That's a basic way to look at a warm-up. And that's the way that's my advice from a simplistic standpoint. There's a lot of variables. Great question. Thoughts on velocity-based training? I love velocity-based training. And a lot of people think you got to get into the technology. No, I mean, it's pretty simple. AFAP is as fast as possible. So do it as fast as possible. That's velocity-based training. The best velocity-based training is sprinting. Guess what? Throw this med ball as hard as you can. That's velocity-based training. If you want to sum up velocity-based training, understand that the body does make adaptations that are velocity specific. So doing 60% loads on weight going as fast as possible is going to create a different adaptation than doing 90%. Or doing 10%. So I think that you got to keep that in mind and understand the variation in velocity-based training. We do a lot of velocity-based training, and we have been able to get athletes to improve vertical by 6 to 12 inches that have been in college strength conditioning programs where the strength coach is getting paid $400,000 to $750,000 a year. And that's because these things work, or these things do work. That's why it's important to know what strength residuals are. How long does maximal strength last? And then what other types of things can we feather in there that are actually going to get a physiological response? Is it responsible to have some form of sprint jump in every workout? I think in the warm-up it is. I think beyond that, I would decrease the volume. Good question. Young CSCS. Man, if you feel like you know nothing, then that means you're in the right mindset to be in this profession. And we want you in this profession. Challenge yourself. Go make a list. This is what I would do. Make a list of problems that you can't solve right now. You take that list of problems that you can't solve and you go find people that are solving that problem. Now, when you do that, then now you know what you need to go look at. And that's the way I would go about it. Great question. Man, Connor's like my support team right here. How can we change the norm? That's a question I've been asking for 17 years. I think if you're a runner, I think if you're a runner and you got a race in the evening, I think getting out in the morning and doing some type of low amplitude warm up to get the neurological system to start to ramp up, I think that's appropriate. This year with the NFL Combine, our guys were testing between 8 p.m. and midnight. So we get them in the morning and move them around a little bit. And it worked really well for 90% of them. Certain ranges for VBT, for velocity-based training. Yeah, it's a good question. So I think there's a lot of resources out there. If I'm honest with you, I program in 2-week blocks. We're going to hit every percentage in 2 weeks. So if we're going to do squat, I'm going to mix it up between bilateral and unilateral, and I'm going to mix it up between percentages. So we'll probably only hit 90 to 100% one time in 2 weeks. We're going to hit that 60% range probably 2 times at minimum, 40 to 60%, probably 3 to 4 times, 0 to 40%, 2 to 3 times. So I know that's a lot of information, but that's kind of how we look at it. Yeah, empty your cup, man. That's right. Work to rest ratio for an athlete conditioning on the track, anaerobic. I would say at least, I like a 4 to 1, man. If you run 100 and it takes you, God willing, it takes you 10 seconds, you need to rest close to a minute. I think that's the minimum. Or really, look, 10 to 1 is probably ideal for true anaerobic, alactic sprinting, in my opinion. True anaerobic, alactic. And a lot of people don't have the time or the patience, but I'm just being honest. Look, I've been to some high-level Olympic track practices where people will sprint a 150 and go lay down for 15 minutes under a shaded tent. So, and then go run another one, maybe do 4 total max. High-level speed training is not exciting. That's just the facts, and a lot of people don't have the mental fortitude, patience, and belief systems to do it. They just don't. Yeah, so is there a way to improve endurance for the arm in baseball so it doesn't get sore quick? Yeah, long toss. Look at the resources on from Alan Jaeger on long toss, and that's what I would do. I think Tom House puts out a lot of great resources. Driveline has a lot of great resources. There's a lot of things out there, but you need to long toss if you want to have the capacity to have variability in your arm slot, and if you want to increase velocity, and if you want endurance. Strength residuals based off of level, 30 days for high level. What is it for middle school? Yeah. So with middle school, the strength residuals are a little different because they don't have maximal strength because they don't have hormones. Their cross-sectional muscle fiber can't adapt. So I would say max strength is kind of off the table. So really you're just working with strength endurance, which is going to be probably about 10 days for that age group. Yeah, build volume and then long toss. Coach Connor is my assistant on this. Guys, I'm going to have to wrap it up. I got a 1 o'clock. Share this, man. If anybody can benefit from this talk, I want to give as much as I can during this time. And if sharing this live is helpful, then please share it. Yeah, so acceleration and max velocity sessions consist of, the short answer would be the least amount possible. The hardest part of our workout is the warm up for the guys. And if I'm doing acceleration, I'm going to try to keep it under 5 sprints. max velocity, probably 3 or less. We do a ton of variation. So giving you an outlook on that would be tough. I would say in a 12-week NFL Pro Day programming slate, we probably do 20 different workouts, a lot of different variations. I don't know if I dropped any wisdom, but I did have some hot sports opinions. So also, there'll be a podcast coming soon. I'm already working on it. We'll have the first episode up soon. So be looking for that. God bless you guys. I got to run. Got to go to a meeting. Thank everyone for tuning in. Hope this helps somebody out there. And man, be positive. Be the positive light right now. We are in a very negative type of culture right now, and we got to be that light, man. We can be leaders. This profession, parents, people listening to this, we can be leaders right now. Let's do it. God bless you guys.